Hello and welcome to the Raw Review here on Wrestling with Regret. Let's just dive right into this week's episode, beginning once again with Randy Orton. Now, normally I'd get bored of the same person coming out for 3 weeks in a row, but I must say, to reiterate what I said last week when I made my big wall of text edit to explain my change of opinion in the Matt Hardy, Randy Orton Part 2 thing they did last week, I think it was really well done. The more I thought about it as I was making my edits to the review, I realized, oh, it's actually a much stronger segment than I gave it credit for, which explains the big edit. I was just too tired to reshoot and get everything set back up to shoot a new stand-up about it. But there you go. And so this week I was very intrigued going into this. How would Orton explain what he did to Matt Hardy again? It was kind of a step back in a way, kind of a half step back. He goes on to say in this promo, none of you will understand why I did what I did to Edge. And he goes on to not explain exactly why he did what he did to Edge. He still has not really made that clear yet, but he apologizes again. He's still this very insanely conflicted, crazy person. Kevin Owens shows up and says, I don't believe your apology, and he goes on this big speech about how excited he was as a fan that Edge was back, and as a competitor, he couldn't wait to finally, maybe possibly, square off with him in the ring, and then Orton took all that away. So Orton speaks cryptically, dropping a, you think you know me. Edge thought he knew me, but he didn't. And again, just peeling a little bit more back. And so Kevin challenges him to a fight, and Orton accepts, but not this very minute, and that's pretty much that. We started seeing a very teeny tiny glimpse of Orton's motives here. And normally I'm an impatient man when it comes to this sort of thing, but like I said at the top of this segment, I'm getting far more interested now in the Orton thing than I was at the beginning. And, you know, like I said, we're just getting a little bit more every week. And I know next week they've announced that Beth Phoenix is going to show up to give a medical update on Edge, so I'm sure Orton's going to play a role in that, and maybe we'll learn a little bit more. Again, more peeling back the layers, again, keeping people just interested enough to keep them coming back. So I did appreciate there's kind of like doing a little bit of chipping away at that this week. In the gorilla position, we see Angel Garza and Zelina Vega being interviewed, and Vega reiterates that, you know, Angel is Lothario, a ladies' man, and Angel kisses Charlie Caruso's hand, and she's all aflutter as we go to our first match of the night as Angel takes on his cousin Humberto Carrillo in a grudge match. Really entertaining stuff at the beginning. There's this one point where they've locked their legs, and suddenly they're both upside down on their heads, and they're like slapping each other in the face. I have never seen that move done before. That was brilliant. And it's just a fun match to watch. We saw the mixture of like the high spots and just these guys trying to one-up each other. Like they're kicking at each other on the apron, like just trying to like be the last one to kick somebody. After a lot of near falls, Angel wins after blocking a victory roll and just sitting on him, maybe grabbing the tights, but it's never really mentioned, so maybe it didn't really happen. Maybe it's just he's grabbing like the straps, the bits that are hanging off of the edge of Humberto's tights. Anyway, he wins the match there. It was good stuff. I get the feeling that we're not done with these guys yet. Well, last week, Ricochet beat Carl Anderson in singles action, and this week he takes on the other half of that tag team in Luke Gallows. It's a pretty short and sweet matchup here. Ricochet's able to overcome the size advantage brought on by Gallows, hits a recoil and a shooting star press from very far away, and nails it perfectly to win the matchup there. And that was kind of a nice little shade thrown by Todd Phillips in the commentary. Beat that, Billy Kidman. So it's a nice win for Ricochet, but when almost everybody beats the OC, is it really that impressive of a win, especially when you're trying to build Ricochet up as this like believable contender for Brock Lesnar just a few days away? Backstage after that loss, the OC are having a chat, and AJ reminds Gallows and Anderson that Ricochet could pull off the miracle at Super Showdown, and then he could swoop right in and challenge Ricochet for the championship, especially if he wins that big mid-card gauntlet trophy they're advertising for the show. Then suddenly Aleister Black walks into the shot, and the boys in the OC don't take too kindly to that, and they beat the hell out of him. It's 3-on-1 beatdown. After they leave, we do see Aleister kind of pull himself back up and gather himself. He'll be in action later in the night, but I do like the fact that the OC are kind of these like habitual, to steal a phrase from Chappelle's show, habitual line steppers. They just keep kind of getting in everyone's business. Right now, they're feuding with not only, they've started this feud with Aleister Black, that we saw here, and we'll see it develop a little more in the night, but they're also in the feud with Ricochet. Like, we'll see one at a time taking them on. So will we see AJ take on Ricochet again after what we saw Gallows and Anderson do? Who's to say? But the OC are kind of like these catch-all baddies right now who get involved in a few different things at once. I like the fact they're able to overlap. It's Brocky Brock time. Heyman does Heyman things on the microphone as he usually does. The real highlight of this promo is when he talks about, you know, if Ricochet is able to pull off the miracle. If my aunt had balls, she'd beat my uncle, but she doesn't, so she's not. It's a great little line to throw in there. Then he wraps it up with the spoiler, and he says, I've only been wrong once in the last 7 or 8 years. This is a spoiler. Brock's going to win, and then hit the music. And there goes the champ. Have a nice flight to Saudi Arabia.
What do you want?
Came from a girl.
Oh. Did that hurt, bully?
It's the rematch we never knew we needed as Aleister Black takes on Eric Rowan for the second week in a row. And of course, Black is not at full strength here, selling his injuries from the beatdown backstage, but he's able to fight on here. It's a really good match. It's given a lot more time than last week's match, a lot more competitive. At one point, Rowan runs toward Black, but he checks the steel steps instead, and in doing so, the mystery cage flies off onto the floor, and then Rowan power bombs Black into the corner post, which looks sick. Rowan gets back into the ring after checking on the cage, and he eats 2 more Black masses in a row for Aleister to win. I feel kind of bad for Rowan here. I mean, it's a good match, but it's like they've been spending months building Rowan up as this jobber killer, and he's had the mystery of what's in the cage, and then, oh, you're just going to lose 2 weeks in a row to Aleister Black and not develop your character from there. Bye. So that's kind of weird. Why would you build Rowan up for that? I mean, you build him up for Aleister Black, but then what do you do with him? Anyway, after the match, Aleister's on the mic on the stage, and basically he says, in case you think I'm being too dark or cryptic, thank you for noticing me, by the way, Aleister. He says, next week I'm taking on AJ Styles. So again, more the cross-pollination, it's more the overlap. Aleister, he's been feuding with Rowan, now he's feuding with AJ, who's feuding with Ricochet at the same time with his cronies. It's a lot of overlap here, and I like it. We get a sit-down interview with Drew McIntyre where he pretty much gives you a brief synopsis of his entire WWE career, from the first run he had several years ago, debuting at the age of 21, being dubbed the Chosen One and the future world champion by Vince McMahon, how that didn't pan out, his world of hell being part of 3MB. Oh man, poor Heath and Ginger on that one. Then he gets fired, he's in the independents, comes back with a vengeance with NXT, comes to the main roster onto Raw in 2018, and here we are now. And basically the whole message he has here is, hard work pays off, I'm living proof. I think it's a really good interview. It really showed the journey he's been on all these years. They gave it credit and said, hey, here's this guy, he's been through all this stuff. It's, again, more sympathy for the babyface, and it's done really well, not hitting you over the head with it. Drew is a very likable personality in this interview, so yeah, definitely one of the high points for me in the show. After that interview, though, we see R-Truth in the ring to welcome us to the winter premiere of Truth TV. His guests are Bobby Lashley and Lana, and they want nothing to do with the interview. Truth asks Lashley if he's seen the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and Lana just yells, ring the bell, and they have a match, and it's a quick squash, and Lashley destroys Truth. Truth does go for the attitude adjustment, but Lashley's able to block it, hits the spear to win. They're just really building up that mid-card gauntlet trophy match they got, and boy, it could be anyone's to win. The whole thing with Truth doing the talk show with Lashley, though, why? It's time for the Elimination Chamber contract signing. Those are always fun and exciting. Jerry Lawler is the moderator for this thing, and we see all the ladies involved in the ring except for Shayna Baszler, who Lawler says, well, she's in the arena, but we don't know where she is now. So there you go. The ladies sign the contract. We get a bit of a face-off between Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott in the process. Shayna Baszler finally shows up late to the party, but she saunters into the crowd looking cool as hell. She signs the contract. Lawler pieces out, saying, y'all, you're on your own now. We get a stare down between Natalya and Shayna, but then Asuka shoves Natty out of the way and dares Shayna to bite her, and then Natalya gets back into it, and all those 5 ladies, basically everyone but Shayna, brawls their way out of the ring at that point, and Shayna's kind of looking confident, untouchable. Out comes Becky Lynch, and the two of them has fight, big pull apart brawl, the officials and the agents are getting involved in everything, and that's where it ends. I think this was an okay segment overall. We saw some follow-up with the Riot Squad members, the former Riot Squad, I should say. Asuka was her crazy bombastic self. Shayna looks literally untouchable for most of that segment there. Becky comes in, gets some revenge, but not a ton. Good all around. Hopefully things will ramp up more as we get toward the pay-per-view. I'd hate for this to be the emotional high point of the build. The Street Profits are challenging Seth Rollins and Murphy for the Raw Tag titles this Thursday at Super Showdown, so we got a couple of singles matches involving all 4 of the guys back to back. Before the match, though, we see the Street Profits cutting a promo, and Angelo Dawkins calls Murphy Murph the Smurf. Gets a bit of a chant. I'm like, okay, it's kind of clever because it rhymes, and I guess because he's short, but everyone is kind of his height, so it's not that big a deal. He's also not wearing blue, so whatever. It was over for a minute. Anyway, the first match is Dawkins versus Murphy. We get it literally goes nowhere because about a minute in, Rollins gets in there and interferes. The match is thrown out, and then we go to our next matchup: Montez Ford versus Seth Rollins, and this is the match of the night. Unlike the last match we just saw, this one was great. Some great back and forth. Rollins just giving so much to Ford here. Montez really holds his own here against the former world champion, but then he misses the frog splash, feeds right up into a stomp. It looks absolutely perfect, and Rollins wins the match here. But yeah, this is good stuff. I think Ford, he's a star in the making. We've been seeing it week after week, and this match against Rollins, I think, really helped solidify that in a lot of ways, in my eye at least. But yeah, I think he did great here against Rollins, who, really, like I said, gave a lot to Montez here. Main event time as Randy Orton takes on Kevin Owens. Before the commercial break, we see the Messiah Maniacs make their way back to ringside to surround the ring, but the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits come out and chase them away. Not much of the actual match, not worth really much talking about in this thing, but at one point Rollins gets back to ringside and tries to meddle. Orton hits the drape over DDT, and then the referee gets a really quick fast count and 3, and Orton wins, and people are confused. Rollins throws a couple chairs into the ring to Orton and says, "Let the voices speak to you, Randy. Let them speak to you. Kill Kevin Owens with a chair and do my dirty work for me." Kevin grabs one of the chairs. He and Orton have a face-off. The referee gets involved again after Orton leaves. Kevin finally confronts the referee and rips the referee shirt off to reveal a Monday Night Messiah shirt. Oh, son of a bitch. The fix is in all along in this entirely inconsequential match. And so then Kevin hits the referee with a stunner, and Seth is like, "That is a good human being, Kevin," on stage as he's up there. He denies all wrongdoing involved in this, by the way. Then Kevin hits a stunner, puts him through a table, and that's where it ends. It's interesting how they basically use the promo with Orton to loop back into Kevin's continuing feud with Rollins. I kind of like that, but what a waste of a gimmick to have the crooked referee in there. That's something you save for a pay-per-view match or a title match, not for this throwaway match with Orton that's not going to be followed up on next week, because Kevin's still working on the Seth Rollins thing and Orton's got his thing pending with Beth Phoenix. That just seemed like a waste of a swerve to me. My final grade for this show is a C+. It's pretty much down the middle. I give it a little bit of extra point though, especially for the Montez Ford Seth Rollins match. Like I said, that was my favorite match of the night. Potential star-making matchup for Montez there. It was that good. And I think that Garza versus Carrillo was a great match as well. And I think of all the interviews and promos, Drew McIntyre's was tops. As far as things I didn't like, the Truth Lashley stuff was kind of a waste. It was this last ditch push to try and build the gauntlet match for Thursday. And again, like I said, the crooked referee being wasted on what's ultimately probably going to be a meaningless matchup here. We'll never see the referee again, I would think, and use something like that for when there's more on the line, when the stakes are higher. I think that's when you use a crooked referee. But that's just my opinion. But let me know what you thought about this week's Raw in the comment section below, and be sure to give a letter grade by going to the iCard in the corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.